It's easy to see vast inequality in military might between the great nations of the West and the enemies they choose. During the French Revolution, academics came up with the theory of total war. It's the idea that during warfare there is very little, if any, distinction between the effect of war on a civilian and a combatant.
So if one's in a total war, then I would say that is a situation like in Britain in the Second World War, where everybody is mobilised. So everybody has got to work in the factories or on the fields. Everyone who's not a child, that is, all go and fight. So basically everybody is involved. I think that's the meaning of a total war. Also, it's a total war is where everybody is potentially a victim. So through bombing or occupation or whatever it is, I would say that's total war.
Professor Bowring denied that total war takes place today in any part of the world, but perhaps many Iraqis and Afghans would disagree. At home, at least, our governments do everything they can to minimise the effect of war on the general public. Jeremy Scahill is an American investigative reporter. In his book Dirty Wars, he details a process by which powerful militaries are able to wage wars in faraway lands almost without any risk to their own nationals.
I know people that are drone pilots. I know people that are working on covert operations in the Horn of Africa and on the Arabian Peninsula. In fact, someone that I know who's a drone pilot who works at a U.S. base in the southwest of the United States described to me how he goes to work. He's a drone pilot. He is waging war halfway across the world, but he goes to work in a little trailer on a military base in the southwest of the U.S., and he drives onto the base in the morning and he sits in his trailer, and he may be involved with a bombing operation in Pakistan or in Yemen or elsewhere, and he does this, and then he gets into his vehicle and he drives back off the base to go home, and there's a sign as he's leaving that says, buckle up, like put your seatbelt on. This is the most dangerous part of your day. Meaning that there's a greater likelihood that he's going to get into a car accident than he's going to get shot down in his plane, because he's actually piloting a plane from thousands of miles away. So there's always been a drive toward trying to wage war without sacrificing your own people.
Not since the Second World War have Britons been required to evacuate their homes. Indeed, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have hardly any impact on the everyday American or British layperson. Even in the face of Wednesday's attack, the Prime Minister was insistent that incidents such as these cannot change the way we live our lives.
People across Britain, people in every community, I believe, will utterly condemn this attack. We have had these sorts of attacks before in our country, and we never buckle in the face of them.
I'm sure people remember it's an iconic photo. It's got all of the...
In his years of covering US military policy, Jeremy Scahill uncovered a belief among some American policymakers that the whole world is a battlefield. It's exactly the kind of ideology that justifies the murder of drummer Lee Rigby by his killers. And it's the kind of policy that is likely to haunt the British public and policymakers for years to come. On Friday morning, Britain's security services faced questions over whether they could have done more to prevent the Woolwich attack. It had emerged that the suspected killers were known to intelligence officers. The two suspects are still under guard in hospitals and are yet to be charged. Michael Adebolajo was born in Britain to a Nigerian immigrant family, while his accomplice Michael Adebowale is a naturalised British citizen who was born in Nigeria. A total of 9 arrests have been made in connection with the murder, perhaps an indication that police are investigating whether the attack was part of a wider plot.
Yes, there were some further arrests last night, some further searches have taken place. The police and the security service are working very hard in relation to this case. We now have around 500 officers and others who are working on the case, including some officers who've been brought through from counter-terrorism units elsewhere in the country.
So we simply can't assume and shouldn't assume that this is a lone wolf, as it's called.
Well, I think the indications, all the indications would be for that. But of course, this is an ongoing investigation. And what we have to do is, the police and the security service have to do their job. That's exactly what people would be expecting them to do. So I can't go into details of the case, as you yourself has said. For obvious reasons, it's an ongoing investigation.
Witnesses to the arrest of 2 of the men said they heard what they thought were gunshots.
A police van came in and 3-4 unmarked police car with 3-4 men came out of the car with balaclava on, and they started firing shots. So they fired 3 shots. My wife was in the kitchen, she came out, right, and the police told her to go back in, and she screamed. She says, my kids are in the park. And when the police fired the shot, the kids started running in all directions. And I think this is the most unprofessional police operation I have ever witnessed.
Meanwhile, residents in Woolwich continue to lay floral tributes outside the barracks, and some expressed their ongoing shock of the events.
It's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Disbelief. You know, you just can't believe it was happening, or something like that would happen.
On Saturday evening, things took a nasty turn when a French soldier patrolling a business neighbourhood near Paris was stabbed in the neck. The attack raises questions about a possible copycat attempt.
Madame, il ne faut pas être un grand devin pour voir la similitude. On est dans un lieu, un militaire, un individu qui vient pour le poignarder. Il n'y a pas besoin d'être un grand devin pour voir que des gens s'inspirent de faits commis à l'étranger pour les reproduire sur notre territoire, en fait.
France is also on high alert after its military intervention in Mali this January. Many believe this has prompted threats against French interests from the North African wing of Al-Qaeda.
Le terrorisme, les trafics, la piraterie ne concerne pas simplement l'Afrique, concerne l'ensemble du monde. Et c'est ensemble que nous devons combattre ces fléaux. C'est ce que nous faisons au Mali pour protéger le Sahel. Et la France a pris, avec les amis africains de l'Ouest, sa responsabilité. Comme l'avait fait l'Éthiopie lorsqu'elle est elle-même intervenue avec des pays de l'Union africaine en Somalie. À chaque fois, c'est pour lutter contre le terrorisme.
By Sunday evening, the UK Foreign Office confirmed that Michael Adebolajo had been arrested in Kenya nearly 3 years ago before the Kenyan government deported him back to Britain. It's thought that during his incarceration he complained of being mistreated and denied access to an attorney. The Foreign Office confirmation could increase pressure on Britain's security services to set out exactly what they knew about Adebolajo and whether they could have done more to prevent Wednesday's killing. It also raises particular questions about whether treatment by security services that are deemed as harassment has any impact on pushing young people into what is often referred to as radical activity.
People, they are mistreating us and we are innocent, believe me.
The Muslims have been feeling victims for many years. I think, the whole Palestine conflict, when it became a religious issue, for many years it was a nationalistic issue. But, about 20 years ago, it became a religious issue, and then Muslims suddenly felt that, they're getting hard done by. But if Muslims remain and stay in this victim mindset, it's only going to damage the Muslims, because the enemies of Islam, they're thriving. They're like, great, because what happens is, and anything goes wrong, Muslims have somebody to blame, and then there's no reason to do anything about it. In a proper way, and in a positive way. So I think victim mentality has affected us badly, and I think, especially British Muslims, we need to start, looking at things, looking at problems strategically, long term, both as Muslims of Britain, but more importantly, Muslims globally. How can we support Muslims around the world proactively in a strategic way without having to resort to violence and making a difference?
Yesterday, the head of the police counter-terrorism unit said security services were pursuing a significant amount of CCTV, social media, forensic and intelligence opportunities.
We have been undertaking a complicated and often rapidly developing round-the-clock investigation since the horrific murder of Fusilier Lee Rigby in Woolwich on Wednesday afternoon. The Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command, supported by the National Counter-Terrorism Officers and the Security Service, continue to work tirelessly and painstakingly to uncover the full circumstances relating to this attack. The 2 men arrested at the scene of the attack remain in hospital and will be formally interviewed when it is possible to do so. 3 further men arrested yesterday. They remain in custody at this time. This remains an ongoing investigation focused upon the safety of the public and identifying any others who may have been involved. The investigation is progressing well, but there is still a lot more work to be done.
Indeed there is, but it's not just work to be done by the police. This is a police problem, but apparently also a British Muslim problem, just like it is a foreign policy problem. And as we've heard, until all dialogue is opened up and all parties work together, it seems the problem is here to stay.